If not, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors May meeting. Thank you all for being with us tonight. Ask our secretary to go ahead and call the roll.
Chair Kaplan.
Here.
Vice Chair Kleist. Arish Gudger.
Here.
Matt Harris.
Here.
Praveen Kapel. Jesse O'Connell.
I see him on here. We want to make sure he's able to unmute.
Jesse, can you hear us? We just were calling roll.
Yep, I can hear you great.
Hillary Orr. Kirsten Phelps.
Here.
Kendall Taylor.
Here.
Ajayesha Thomas. Arthur Wicks.
Here.
Chair Kaplan, you have a quorum. Those absent are Vice Chair Kleist, Praveen Kapel, and Hillary Orr.
Steve has, Steve and Hillary both have excused absences for work-related travel. And I think Praveen is on his today. Do you want to go ahead and show the video first, or should we do public?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got the video.
This is the video from the anniversary celebration, just so we could all see it with maybe a little bit better volume, and for anyone who wasn't able to join, it's really well done. Deep dive into Dash's kind of history and culture.
Yeah, about 7 minutes long. So.
My name is Earl Jackson. I pulled out the first bus here. I worked on Sundays. First day on the bus, I was nervous.
I went out by myself and I was supposed to dead head to Landmark, and I ended up in an apartment complex. I was just like, where am I at?
You know, and now I look back at my mother and all that, they couldn't ride a bus, and I said, now I'm driving a bus. And I felt good, you know. I'm sitting in the driver's seat, you know.
Most of the people had not driven a bus before. Most of the people hadn't worked on a bus before.
My first day when I arrived at the job, it was a trailer. I never worked out of a trailer in my life.
The trailer was supposed to be a 1-2 year temporary home for Dash. Well, it wound up being more like 5 or 6. And so I think at that time the employees weren't sure that on a daily basis that they would show up and actually the doors would be open for them, because it seemed so temporary.
You know, we had nice, clean buses. We had friendly drivers and reliable service. And that helped us grow our ridership, you know, from under 1 million to over 2 million within a couple of years.
Passengers used to ask me when I say good morning to them and say have a nice day, they say, where you from? Because they weren't used to that.
Once we got approval to renovate the building on Quaker Lane, that's sort of when I came on board. And it served its purpose. But the day we moved in, we were already crowded. I think the day we moved into 3000 Business Center Drive, I think the employees all together had such a sigh of relief that we really made it in the city of Alexandria. We are really part of the community, and the city actually really cares about us.
We thought it was a penthouse. We couldn't believe it. You know, we was amazed.
You know, compared to 24 years ago when I first started, these buses are like rocket ships. Faster engines, smoother rides, different suspensions, different tires.
One of my favorite milestones is being introduced to electric buses. That's our latest thing we have in the fleet as of now. And it's kind of fascinating. Dash never stays at one thing. They're constantly looking into the future and moving forward.
Well, the new network was certainly the biggest project I've worked on here in 21 years. It was a very public process. with a lot of community engagement. But it was the first time we had really wiped the slate clear and tried to redefine from scratch what we mean as a bus system. Free fares were icing on the cake. I think we would have seen a lot of the growth that we saw with or without the free fares, just because we put ourselves out there as a more viable option. We're running service that runs on many routes every 10 or 15 minutes, where before we had many routes running hourly.
We're basically blowing away any ridership numbers that we've ever had. The reality is we have record ridership every single month, and it just keeps growing, is a testament to the fact that our service is a part of the infrastructure of the community, and it is a way for people to live their life.
Over the years, since I've been here since 1985, Dash has grown, and I have grown along with the company. I have obtained 2 degrees. I'm a grandmother, great-grandmother. I've gotten married here at Dash, and as Dash has grown, I have grown.
The ultimate plan, which sets out the framework for our network through 2030, includes bringing more of that high-frequency transit to even more parts of the city. And so a lot of emphasis will be going into developing services that are even more useful than what we've done today.
We're really a way for people to drive the economy, to live their lives, to get to their jobs, to get to school, to be a part of basically what makes Alexandria so special.
My passengers are my friends because I have some that I pick up on regular basis, and we get to talking, personal things. We look for each other every day, and they make my day, and I make their day.
I've been at this company for my entire adult life. A lot of the people that I work with are some of my closest friends, and I really believe in the mission that we've got here. I have a lot of friends in the industry that don't speak to the same level of community involvement, acceptance, and even praise that we get here. And I'm just very fortunate to have been part of it.
I think that Dash really stands out because of its people. The reality is our system, our organization is built off of a foundation of family, and recognizing that being bonded together and working together in a way that not only supports each other in the things we have to do, but makes sure that we succeed and excel in those things, makes Dash very unique.
We are the best system, not just in the city, not just in the state, not just in the country, but in the world. Dash is the best.
And Dash, 40 years, 40 more years, 40 more years. Go Dash, yes!
I think I'm a central employee. Right, Daisy? You are, sir. I got dispatch back me up.
Thank you for showing that.
Sorry, the audio was a little hard to hear in the format within the room of the 40th.
Yeah.
But we were able to show it again for you.
Thank you. Nice way to start the meeting too.
And it's online. It's on YouTube, on our
Oh,
YouTube page. If you want to share it with anybody, well.
I was going to say Dave Jensen must have been very young when he was the Dash general manager, or looks like, because he does
Dave Van
not look.
Fossen? Oh, yeah, Dave Van Fossen, the first.
Dave Van
general
Fossen,
manager.
yeah.
So he's retired now, but still active in the industry, and he retired after 40 years. So I suspect it was one of his first.
Okay. Well, I would definitely have been in his 20s. He looked pretty young for having been. He must have been in his 20s. So, yeah, that's great. Thank you for showing that again. So we so we have our public comment period. Let me just explain. We had announced in April we were going to have a budget public hearing. We're actually going to hold the budget public hearing until June because later on in the meeting, Josh will be presenting the final budget, the final proposed budget with the adjustments that were made by city council action in adopting the city's budget. And so we didn't think that it was fair to have a budget public hearing. Then as the budget is being announced, people wouldn't really be able to react, although we've been collecting feedback on a lot of the service changes through the Alexandria Transit Strategic Plan process and on the budget as we've gone along and have addressed that feedback. So we're going to have the budget public hearing in June. I've asked staff to look at the schedule for the budget adoption for next year to kind of look at when we should schedule that hearing, so that way we can have meaningful feedback, because having it in June gives people time to react to it, but doesn't give us a lot of time to react to any feedback we might get. So we'll look to kind of figure out the right time to do that in the fall. But the budget public hearing will be next month. But if anybody was here to comment on the budget, you'll have an opportunity in the public comment period. I'll read our statement and then we'll call any speakers. We're about to convene into public comment period of our meeting. All dashboard meetings include a public comment period at the beginning of the meeting, as we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our riders and community members. The board is here to listen. However, please keep in mind that public comment period is not designed to be a discussion. Accordingly, please do not expect the board to respond to your concerns or questions tonight. We take any concerns and questions seriously and need sufficient time to process and research any issues if need be. Board members will respond to your questions and concerns at a future meeting or have the proper staff member get back to you at the appropriate time. Please note that personnel matters are not a part of the public comment period. However, please know we take any personnel questions seriously. You are asked to contact the Dash administration with any such concerns. We ask that all speakers and members of the audience maintain civility and respect for any divergent views that others possess. Further, we ask that speakers please address their comments to the board directly rather than the audience. The board will take pre-registered speakers first, and I will invite others who wish to speak who may not have pre-registered. For future meetings, you may pre-register on the website dashbus.com on the board of directors page. I will now call the first speaker. Please remember each individual speaker is allotted 3 minutes for your comments. If you're speaking on behalf of the Neighborhood Civic Association or Unit Owners Association, please identify yourself accordingly, and you may be recognized for up to 5 minutes. Do we have any pre-registered speakers?
Someone registered online, Jim Bruin.
Okay, so do we know Mr. Bruin is with us?
He is. I have just promoted him to be able to speak. Let's see if you can unmute. Thanks.
Mr. Bruin, if you should be able to unmute yourself. We'll hear your comments at this time. Mr. Bruin?
He's enabled, but his mic is still muted.
Mr. Bruin, you just need to unmute yourself. You can put a message in the chat for our staff monitoring the meeting if you're having difficulty doing that, so we know that you're with us and still want to be recognized.
Still muted at this point.
All right,
But we'll make it possible if he's able to.
Yeah. So Mr. Bruin, we're going to move on, but if you are looking for assistance, please put that in the chat and then we'll circle back to you if you'd like to be recognized. Is there anybody in the room who did not pre-register who wishes to speak during public comment? Is there anybody additional online who wishes to be recognized for public comment? Please use the raise hand feature in Zoom.
Three other attendees and no one has raised their hand.
Okay. So we're gonna move on from public comment. Mr. Bruin, if you need assistance, please indicate in the chat and we'll circle back to you. So public comment period is closed. Next agenda item is consideration of the April board meeting minutes that were included in our packet. Are there any revisions to the minutes as they were presented? If not, is there a motion to adopt them? So moved by Matt, second Art, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Jay Show abstains. We now move on to the chair's report and the long-awaited Metro report icebreaker competition that we did. And I even tried to whip up some additional participation through a threat to withhold cookies if we didn't get to our intended point. And I see a few of you responded to that and submitted your numbers. I don't know if that, do we have this as a slide or do I just have this?
No,
It's not a slide. Okay. So I will share with you who participated. And I want to thank, well, first, I want to thank all of you who did participate in this. It was something new. I thought it was very cool how Metro had made these stats available and to be able to kind of look at your ridership on a global level. As some of you pointed out, there were some kind of faults or kind of, deficiencies to this. Number one, most importantly, the Dash is not counted in any of our rides. And we, especially those of us who live here, ride Dash a lot, and that's not captured here. And two, the problem of multiple cards. And reassured me about that specifically. And I think others of you have mentioned too that and Martin had mentioned too that he had used multiple cards during the year, so your stats wouldn't look all that good. So I thank you for the spirit of this, but I also understand this may not be the best kind of annual icebreaker, and so we'll move back to something more traditional in the future. But for those of you who participated, I did, Josh did, Matt did, Edward did, Brent did, Kirsten did, Jesse did, Martin did, and Praveen did. So percentile all metro riders, and you're looking for a lower number. The winner is Brent. Brent is in the 1%. So there are only 1% of metro riders who ride metro more than he did. Second place, so there's a tie for second place between Edward and myself. We both had 4%. And then Edward would actually beat me because our tiebreaker was number of bus rides. And so Edward, because I know you live in the district, used 92 bus rides, whereas I only had 32 because you weren't counting my dash bus rides. So in the second, but Brent even won, blew us all out of the water on that measure too. Do you remember what your number was? You rode the bus 136 times in calendar year 2023. So, and then in terms of fourth place, it looks like would be Matt, and then fifth place was Kirsten. Oh, Martin, thank you. You did submit your Josh coming in then with that 45%. Josh, and then it looks like Martin, Jesse, and Praveen was submitted a card, I guess, that you didn't rise very much. So.
I have a whole deck of other cards. Like I was like, I just need to put in one. So
yeah,
at least I'll have responded. I was trying to keep hope alive.
99.5% of metro riders wrote more than you, but we know
now
that
we're
you
being
had
transit
15 other
shamed.
cards.
This is a great icebreaker.
Did I call it? But thank you all for participating. Yeah, so I will say, and then on number of bus rides, Brent, Edward, me, Martin, Josh, Kirsten, and Jesse. And the number of metro rail stations visited, I actually won that one, 39. Edward was second at 34, Brent 37, Brent third at 34. And then Kirsten,
top three is
Matt,
good.
Josh, Martin, Jesse, so thank you all. So Brent, you get to decide the dessert options, and so your dessert options are, and I assume you want to share with the whole group, right? Yeah. Okay. So your four choices are, you can let me know at the end of the meeting if you want to think about it: chocolate chip cookies, hazelnut biscotti, banana blondies, or blueberry muffins. So if you want to mull that over. Okay, all right. So he'll let us know, and those will be served to everybody at the June meeting. So thank you again for, but we'll go back to something that's more, kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your experience with transit, some place you like in the city, which is kind of what those who've been around a while know are kind of our more traditional icebreakers. But I appreciate the spirit. And Beth, thank you for compiling all the results. Oh, you made copies. So actually, if anybody wants a copy to put on their fridge or come pick these up.
Maybe a secondary competition would be how many smart trip cards do you have?
Yeah.
6, and I'm always taking to the station saying, how much is on this one?
Yeah. So Josh, you're saying you would have done better.
I think I would have done better because I keep on finding these cards that I have residual balances on, so I end up using them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we do fair jumpers next year.
How many of us are, who among us is
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, my bus ride is long because my route by my house, which is a metro bus, not, I would say 7 times out of 10, when I step on it, they're just like, no, it's broken. Yeah.
No, okay. Wow. Metro keeps trying, but anyway, thank you all for participating. So we have a letter of support then related to the King Bradley project. And I know that Chris Zeman is here from TNES. Chris, I didn't know, I know you're going to give the formal, maybe giving the formal TNES report. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about this project with our board, which we've reviewed. We haven't reviewed in great detail. Hillary has mentioned it in other meetings.
Sure. And this is the NVTA letter that you're talking about?
Yes, and Martin, I know, is quite familiar with this project. No, I'm sorry, this is the King Bradley letter of support, which NVTA letter is next. I didn't know if,
Yeah, so the King Bradley project, it's a really, a really good project. It's responding to a lot of different things that are kind of a lot of different issues that residents have brought up along this section of King Street between Quaker and Minokan Drive. Anywhere from bus access and access to transit to pedestrian safety, bicycle access.
for a second there. Chris,
The owl is the problem.
I think it's on our end, so.
Hang on, let me just put it through the laptop. Chris, can you hear us?
Oh, I can hear you fine. I just can't see you.
Chris?
Can you hear me? Hello?
All right, hang on.
Chris, hold on again.
Speakers, let's see. Speakers. All right, try it again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, not very loud, but let me see if I can decrease the volume at all.
Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hopefully you all can hear that okay. The owl just cut out. We'll try it again in a minute. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So again, this project responds to a lot of concerns that people have had in this very unusual street layout that exists between Quaker and Minokan Drive with the service road, and then then the 2 lanes also in each direction. This is good. There's several different alternatives. Alternative 2. Alternative 2 seems to be the best for buses and transit, because it has a one-way traffic configuration of the service road and a dedicated bus lane as well. So basically how this works is that the space between the existing service road now and then the eastbound traffic, eastbound buses would use that along King Street, and then westbound buses would use the service road as well. And this greatly simplifies a lot of the traffic movements and the safety along there, as well as really makes it so much easier not only to get to bus stops, but then also to operate buses as well.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Mark might be able to help while I try to get this.
Yeah, so
Mark's also good at smart.
Our Dash Advisory Committee submitted a letter very similar to this, endorsing the same alternative. There had been some discussion, and this is primarily what I talked with Mark about earlier in the week. There had been some discussion in that group among westbound service of the stop that's in front of the Safeway now, which will not be impacted by this project, but still a lot of good reasons to go ahead. But do you want to summarize from the Dash perspective, kind of support for this?
Yeah. Alternative number 2 is the one that benefits transit riders the most. All three, or all the alternatives are beneficial for pedestrians and for safety. But the option number 2 has the most in terms of benefit for transit riders. It has turns that service road into a single direction with 2 lanes heading westbound, one of which would be a dedicated bus lane, which would help us out quite a bit because we have 2 frequent routes running through that corridor, and that corridor is one of the most, in terms of how much time we lose, it's one of the top ones in the city. Telegraph Road, and then maybe that is the second. So we would get a lot of bang for a buck for any improvements to reliability, speed, and safety in that corridor with 31 and 36. I think we've got the option number 2 is the best. I think like David mentioned, the issues that were raised by the DAC that we share as well. The pedestrian safety in front of Bradley Shopping Center. There's currently not really a crosswalk that you can use. There's one further down by McDonald's, but no one walks down there. They just cross right by the bus shelters. So additional pedestrian improvements there would be beneficial, which are included in this project. The DAC also made a point, staff agrees, the Safeway there should be served in both directions. Currently it is not. Someone's served in the eastbound direction or westbound. If you're trying to take a westbound bus, you have to take your groceries, walk all the way down past the McDonald's to the Bradley stop westbound. So not ideal from a service standpoint. And that's something that in long term will be addressed. Perhaps not through this project because that would require some very cost prohibitive improvements, but I think that the city is working on, is aware of those issues and is working to address.
And the sidewalks in terms of access to bus stops, we're comfortable with the way those are.
Yes, and there'll be bike lanes as well.
Any questions for either Chris or Martin on the project or the letter as it's drafted? And this is going to traffic and parking board because they would have to approve the changes prior to the city making application. Is there a motion to adopt the letter?
Sorry, one thing, what was in our packet, this is minor detail, sorry, I didn't catch it before. It says Andrew Lewis.
Oh, I thought I
Person.
said that.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it, okay, thank you.
Is there a motion to adopt the letter?
To adopt.
Is there a second? Second that. Any further discussion? Not all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Jesse, you're an aye? Jesse, raise your hand. You were an aye, right?
As an aye,
I'll abstain.
Okay, person abstaining too. Abstain, part will abstain. Okay. Thank you very much. And then we have a second letter, which is the NBTA letter, which provides comments on projects that benefit Alexandria. And there was a requested change that Praveen had bought, asking us also to endorse the Arlington project, which involves the Shirlington Transit Station, which we serve. And we actually were a letter of endorsement with the original application, but we included, reiterated our support as part of the project as well. We have kind of gone over these projects before, but there are questions for staff on them. If not, we can move both way. Is there a motion to adopt the letter? So, moved by Matt, is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Art abstains? All right. All right, we now have the TNS report. Lori, I know, is attending the Smart Cities Conference. Where
Chris is probably, hopefully Chris is, we're able to hear you again, I think, Chris.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yeah.
All right, great. Yeah, so the big news, and I think in the region, is that the WMATA Board of Directors approved the budget about 2 weeks ago. This will keep Metrobus and Metro Rail service levels as they are right now, but there will be a fare increase as well. A couple big projects on our end that affect, or that are related to Dash is the Mount Vernon Avenue North Complete Streets project, which was approved by the Traffic and Parking Board. These are safety improvements between Glebe Road and 4 Mile Run. And the biggest, probably most visible and maybe most unusual change would be the what we call the peanut about at Mount Vernon and Glebe. It's safe. It's kind of an elongated roundabout to handle the skewed intersection there, which is not a 90-degree intersection. So because it's not 90 degrees, there's a lot of very fast right turns there, and 2 pedestrians have been killed in the last several years. So several Dash bus lines and a couple Metro bus lines use that. In addition, the Glebe Montrose Aspie intersection just down the street, that's a 5-legged intersection. And we've been receiving complaints a lot about that as well. The Traffic and Parking Board also approved a roundabout design for that, which should improve safety along there. That's actually being tacked onto a larger stormwater project. And so there's a lot of opportunity to save money in terms of that. Additionally, the Edsel Road Corridor Improvement Project, we applied for a transportation and land use connection grant through the Council of Governments, and it is being recommended for adoption or for funding as well. It would be an $80,000 planning grant to look at safety improvements along Edsel Road, where the dash lines 30 and 35 go. And then the next slide, please. And then King Callahan Russell intersection improvements. This seems to be the project that just will not finish, but it will finish. We're expecting substantial completion this month in May. For PED signals, ADA improvements, safer turns, and ideally better access for residents to Union Station and the King Street Metro and the bus lines that go through there, like 31, 30, 31, 102, et cetera. And then the West End Transitway Operations Planning. We've been meeting regularly with Dash and with WMATA for the last several months. And tomorrow, actually, we're holding a workshop to discuss different ideas and to look at data, ridership data and load data, and to look at other routes to see kind of how to best maximize the operations of that whole corridor. So not just along the route, but including like the lines 35 and the Metro bus line 7A and a few other routes as well. And then I think that might be it, but is there another slide? No, that's, yeah, so that's all the updates. Does anybody have any questions?
Chris, I had one. Could you remind us what fiscal year the West End Transitway is expected to begin operations?
Yes, we're hoping that it starts operations in FY27. The current engineering design right now, we just received the 60% design, so hopefully that the design will be done ideally by the end of the year, but it might take longer with VDOT reviews and everything like that. And then there's a vehicle procurement process that happens as well. And then obviously construction as well.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Chris?
Just a comment, Chris, on King Callahan Russell, just safety note. I got honked at an hour ago there. And despite staff's best efforts, it's not blindingly obvious to people coming toward King that there's a new pattern. So it's creating safety issues daily, as long as that does not become more obvious to people.
What direction, or is just every direction?
Mainly going toward King, there are a lot of
Okay.
people still using the left lane to go straight. I know you have the arrow signs, you have the big flashing lettered sign, but it's still not abundantly obvious to people who are queuing in the left lane to go straight.
Okay, all right, well, thanks. We'll take a look at that again.
Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I'm going to turn this over to Matt Harish, who served as our nominating committee for officers for board of the corporation. And so I'll let the two of you run this part of it.
Sure, thank you. Harish and I sent emails to everybody, just getting a sense of whether they were fine with the slate of officers, which is basically our current slate of officers. We didn't get the greatest amount of participation, but those who did enjoy Dave's cookies, so I think we're good. Jesse responded. He asked for campaign literature, but but otherwise, as you can see, this is our list. Hillary did indicate that it wasn't just David and Steve who were running to me, so that was not clear in my email to you all. Apologize. And of course, we're always available to take nominations from the floor if anybody chooses someone else or they want to self-nominate. So does anybody here want to be a glutton for punishment and self-nominate for a certain defeat? Okay, good. So let's close nominations.
Yeah, Matt, if we could just explain, because we have some new board members, who I think have had some training on this, but just that the ATC operates a city-owned corporation, and that there are officers of the corporation who often line up with people who are employed by Dash who serve in those positions. You'll see some of our staff who are there as well in position. Lonnie Rich, who's our general counsel. But each year we go through that of also, in addition to just the board, we also have to ratify the officers of the corporation. So that entire slate was in the packet. And you'll see that every year we'll kind of go through that exercise. But our bylaws kind of, for a lot of them, make very clear who fills those positions.
No, just a note that, the packet from the last meeting kind of, I think, had the provisions from the bylaws that delineate what the responsibilities for each office are. So if anyone has curiosity, they're in the bylaws, you look them up there, but they're conveniently available in the packet you circulated. So,
but I'll let you guys run the vote on that on the slate officers.
Is there a motion to accept the nomination from the committee as presented? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of accepting the slate of officers as the committee recommends, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstentions, congratulations. And I will say, I think David and Steve, and especially David, I mean, this chair does an excellent job. I've been on numerous commissions and boards, and I think, you know, your objective, your patient beyond reproach, I would have been like, no. You know, it's always simple discussion, maybe with exception. So, I congratulate you and you've been the only chair I've served under on this board for, yeah, so congratulations. You want to say a few words?
Thank you. This is my sixth, I think I'm going on 6 years. So I think I'm completing my 5th year, so this will be my 6th year as chair. I do want to thank, well, first, thank you to the nominating committee for serving, and thank you to all of you for serving on this board and for the myriad of perspectives and experience that you bring. I had, you know, Josh and I talked every month before we have meetings, and I said to, you know, Josh, he gave me some insight that I was the only one running for chair. I was worried when you put out that email, and then I thought, well, I'm gonna withhold cookies too, but maybe.
See, paying off people.
But then, you know, Josh was like, well, you're the only one running, and I said, you know.
A motion to remove.
And Josh said, you know, well, thank you for serving. And I said, well, thank you, and thank you for your team who planned so thoughtfully our board meetings every month, because, you know, this agenda takes a lot of staff time to put together, and for us to ensure that we have the right information, that we have the right speakers, that we have, whether we're here or we're at the Dash facility or Mark Center, that we have the support that we need and that we can do our work. It makes it actually very, very easy to do this job. And so I am deeply appreciative for all of that support. And, you know, we've just gotten better and better. I mean, the idea of running hybrid meetings, you know, 6 years ago was not something I think that we would have thought we could have accomplished very, very easily, or would have been very, very primitive. But now, you know, we do it like it's secondhand. So I do want to say thank you to everyone who contributes to ensuring that we have well-run and thoughtful meetings that we can have the discussion. So I thank all of you for being members of this board. And I know Steve's not with us tonight, but he has you know, a wide range of experience in the transportation industry, and I'm very grateful to have him. Okay. Any others who have board or commission updates that they'd like to share for the benefit of the group? All right, if not, and we'll move into the general manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Good evening. Have a couple of updates to review with you here. I'm going to start with the update on our ridership, which, as I mentioned in the video that you just watched, and I'll mention again, we're killing it. Is the way I would put it. It's just phenomenal ridership. We are still month over month higher than the past year, which was our all-time record year, which is represented by the green skyscrapers there. The red line is this year, and our peak was October 482 to 64. So I don't know, Martin, maybe we should have a competition to see what people project, who projects closest to the number in May, and Martin will make cookies for us. Sorry, I will. Know it. Oh, you already know. But you know, if things continue, we are continuing on track to knock it out of the park again, and that's really great, because this is our most important metric that we look at. So, all right, the next item is partially me, but partially the committee, which is the Transit Management Technical Advisory Services. You've been updated a couple of times, past couple of months. Committee members are Matt and Jesse, and I want to thank them for their assistance in this. Met earlier this week with the proposer, TransDev. The proposal is on the table there with you, has all the details. The committee reviewed the proposal and interviewed the proposers, provided questions and comments. The proposal meets the expectations of the RFP and is a cost savings from our current contract. The primary reason for that being that there is one position under the current contract, which we're going to move in-house, which will result in a net savings, and also hopefully a longer term sustainability of that individual being with our organization. But outside of that, we've added a number of criteria and really turn this to focus not only on the overall transit management design that Dash has operated under since it was formed in 1984, but to really establish expectations that that TransDev does reviews and provides technical support in areas like federal compliance and auditing and whatnot of the organization and our operational procedures. But I will let Matt and Jesse just comment if there's anything else I haven't mentioned about this. I will also mention the timeline is that the committee's recommendation comes to you tonight for consideration of approving their recommendation, which then sets in motion the wheels for me to engage with the proposer to write a contract which you will approve. So you are not approving a contract tonight, you're just simply approving for us to engage in those negotiations. So if you want to add anything.
Jess, you want to go first or?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I thought it was a great conversation. I both was impressed by their capacity, their history with us. But I also appreciated that they responded to some stuff that, Matt and I were asking about. We kind of asked for their insight on kind of, the stuff that keeps them up at night related to the sustainability, not only of their business, but how they work with different bus lines. We talked about that, the ability to gain innovation from other systems that they work with. So I thought it was a really productive conversation, and it's clear why we have a relationship with them, I think is what I'd say.
Yeah, and I would echo what Jesse said. I think I'd also add they were very transparent with us. They had no hesitation answering our questions. The unfortunate thing is they were the single person that group that responded to us. There are others out there, but they've been with us through their successor companies since forever, their predecessor companies. But a little competition would have been nice, I think, especially when we think about the value and maybe we could get a better price. But they seemed okay. And we even said, is there a matrix we could use to see if we're getting our money's worth each year? And they give us feedback of what services we've used more, which we've used less. So I'm satisfied, and it's a well enough run company, and of course they have experience that's unmatched. So, do you need a motion?
So yeah, we're asking for the action item is required that the board approves the recommendation of the committee that then authorizes me to establish the contract, which comes back to you.
Oh, one other thing, Jess, who's actually drafting this contract?
So I would ask them to provide a draft to us, which will then get to Lonnie, and we'll have sufficient review in advance of the board reviewing and discussing it. At the next meeting, it's a tight turnaround.
I wouldn't mind volunteering to look at it too.
Okay. Well, and the committee, we would certainly send it to the committee members as well. The effective date would be July 1. Now, I can tell you that if for some reason we hit a snag and there was disagreement, the board can defer this until the fall, which would then necessitate that I engage with them in an extension of the current contract until the end of the summer. So I don't want anybody feeling like this is being sort of shoved on your plate and you're having to react suddenly to it. The timeline is based on the fiscal year, but in a worst case scenario, we do have that backup plan if it's needed.
A couple of questions. Well, one, Matt, I'm not on the committee, obviously, but if you want an extra set of eyes, happy to look at the deal as well.
Okay.
But just curious, going back to the RFP process, it sounds like we put out an RFP and nobody responded to it.
Well, they did. It's the incumbent. The problem is we're a legacy client of theirs, and it's difficult for new entrants to come in and take over. I think they make more of their money, or most of their business is actually operating and profiting as the exclusive provider of public transit across the country, not the system that we have here, where they're the employer for most of our employees, except Josh in safety or whatever. So it's not something that I think they really want to get into because it's unique in so many regards. But with that said, they know what they're doing. They're great at what they do. I've dealt with their first, when they were first transit, those folks, and, you know, it is what it is. But I appreciate the extra eyes, and I don't see any reason why you couldn't review them as well.
I'll defer to you guys, but if you want, yeah. And then I think back to Jesse's point about learnings from other systems, what other systems do they provide services to? Or what are
For
some of
us?
them? Yeah, I thought Jesse was commenting on just the notion of bringing in learning.
Oh,
from
yeah,
other-
yeah. I mean,
other-
their reach is, you know, national and
national.
international. So when they're, you know, safety protocols, best practices, I even asked a question about route structure. You know, they have so much information and data at their fingertips from just their vastness. And it's not just, I think it's not just public transit. They also may do other types of transits too, as well. So,
Okay, cool, thanks.
yeah, thanks.
They operate rail in some countries, alternate modes.
College campuses, things like that, transportation.
Josh, did you say that, I see David Von Fossen in here as one of the consultants, and was, I guess, chicken and an egg, was he with them first and then to Dash, or Dash and then to them?
Well,
Or how,
Dave
I
is
guess-
retired, so Dave was with First Transit. I think he retired from First Transit. Transdev acquired First Transit and kept many of their folks, which were on the proposal team. Dave is not a full-time employee with them. He was proposed and said, as they described, in response to certain components of our request and his background. So he is on there as a a la carte piece of their proposal. I don't know if it has anything to do with his background from having been here many years ago. It was just on there, so, yeah.
I mean, they'd be foolish
transit
not
in-
to put him on. if
Yeah,
they're
the transit industry is so small as an
Yeah.
industry that you keep seeing the same names pop up in a lot of situations anyway. I'm sure Matt could attest to that, and good and bad, and you see a lot of these pop ups.
Until about 2013, First Transit as the predecessor organization provided the general manager and the assistant general manager both worked for that organization. So we didn't have the structure where they reported to the board. So yeah, so I guess he would have gone on the other. So it looks like he stayed with First and then got acquired. But yeah, pretty much. And then so in terms of pricing, so I see kind of services that are included. Is that something that you all got into? Was there did they have to bid with a price, or does that come in the contract negotiation?
The pricing is proposed, we assume would be the contract pricing.
Is it in here? I flipped through.
Yeah, it is. If there's a table, I don't have it in front of me. I don't know what page it's on. But there is a page that includes the pricing, and there's a base pricing, which is an annual amount.
Page
And-
45.
And there you go. Thank you. So that base amount is charged annually. And then we broke out a number of things to an à la carte basis that were previously not à la carte. And what that does is that gives us the flexibility to choose if we want to use them, or if we feel like there's a different resource or a local resource that would be better suited for the need at that particular time. So that was the design of the RFP, and so their proposal format and their pricing is based entirely on the RFP specifications for what they included in their base price and what was broken out à la carte.
And is any of the 80 hours they talk about of advisory services, are those things that are on the à la carte pricing list? And it's just if we exceed that, or these are all separate from what they provide?
The 80 hours is a base, so it's a bank for us to use, right? For whatever is needed.
Okay, yeah. So 80 hours we get even if we're using something that's like bus line inspections are 85, and then you know are very inexpensive versus labor contract services, but we get 80 hours of whatever we want from that.
I think that would be something that would be defined more in detail in the contract. I couldn't answer you with complete confidence what their intention is of what they would exclude from that 80 hours.
And then the position that is currently a Transdev employee, that would transition over in July to being
yes.
I've got a few questions, Josh. So they name in the proposal one of these outside consultants who they've retained would be available to advise Dash on zero emission vehicles. I just want to clarify from the last question, are those types of services included in the base scope of the 80 hours?
As far as I understand, yes.
Okay.
I would have to go back and look again at the RFP to see how I outline that. But I think that things like this are helpful. We can build that in the contract and make sure it's incorporated appropriately.
Okay, and is that expertise of theirs that we have leaned on before, or would this be new
Not that it's
scope
part of
that
the
we
current
haven't touched?
contract.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
got
not
it.
part of the current contract.
Okay.
Again, these are sort of intended to be additions to, so for example, if Ray isn't working on a particular project in a particular year, maybe we don't need that particular service during that year, we might use a different one, but there might be more heavily working on that. So the hope was for maximum flexibility there where possible.
Got it.
And
Well, I would,
The example they gave was like during contract negotiations, we'll rely more on their labor expertise, and then, we'll have a surplus in labor the next year and use those hours for some other type of issue that may arise, whether it's safety or whatever. That's how they explained it to us.
okay. And Josh, I mean, I would expect, given their breadth of work across the industry, that their expertise in battery electric bus transitions is something that we could lean on, where they're getting a lot of exposure to that in other systems. It's obviously a big transformational challenge that we're facing. So I guess I would want to see that we're able to tap into that kind of expertise. That seems like the spirit of the scope transition that we're going through. My main concern would be that the consultant who they named as the person that they would lean on for that, his resume doesn't say anything about specific work related to battery electric bus transitions. Maybe that's buried underneath some of the systems that he's worked with, but I would expect that there's someone in their stable who is doing this with, basically systems that have that are ahead of us in terms of percentage converted, that we can learn from. That seems like a really key advantage I want to get from this type of scope.
So I made a note on both of your comments here, and I can sit down with them to vet that out a little more extensively and maybe ask for an alternative proposal from them as an individual. To your point, one of the things that was important to build into this in a way that we don't have today is to sort of force them to be a little less locked up about corporate knowledge. And when I say that, there's a number of references to policies and processes and plans that oftentimes proposers, particularly TransDev as one of the world's biggest, has a lot of information, but they're reluctant to share because they're concerned that it's going to affect their position strategically. And so my intent in wording some of this was to make sure that they're not saying to us, well, that's a corporate, because full transparency, I spent a couple of years working in this model, and I know there are sides to the organization where they say, no, that's our proprietary stuff. You can't have that. And so in a way, the angle I was trying to take here was to try to unlock some of those things. And I think they acknowledge that. They'll probably stipulate that there are components that they either redact or that are, if documents or plans, for example, are changed from what they have, it just takes off their own identifying information. But you and I are very aligned in the intention here, because I feel like Dash, we're really, really good at what we do, but we're a small team and we don't have big resources to lean on, aside from our regional partners who are very good to work with us, but they have a lot going on. So I want to get TransDev to be more responsive, not that they haven't been, but to make sure that they have to be responsive.
I think that, tilting of the scope toward that is like a great concept. I just want to make sure that we actually get that benefit, one of our major transformational challenges.
Got it.
Hey, Josh, that knowledge transfer, how do you, what form do you expect that to take? is it just them sending us information periodically or?
I see two versions. One, send your people on site. We need someone here for 3 days to work through this.
Mhm.
Or do you have an example of this that we don't have to reinvent, that you can send us as a template?
Mhm.
Those are the two kind of key approaches, and it would really depend on what it is we're working on. But I want my team to be able to say, gee, we've got this unique project. We don't have people on staff to do this.
Mhm.
Let's call up TransDev and schedule for them to have an expert come in. Heavily, for example, on the technical review and sort of auditing piece. Building that in as something that they're coming and automatically doing. Largely for me and my team, because there's opportunities for me to have blind spots too.
Mhm.
And so when you get a third person coming in to really check that, they can flag things that may not be issues today, but can become one. That's kind of how I've been.
That's interesting. I just wonder then if there is anything worth formalizing by way of regular, periodic check-ins, not necessarily project specific or in response to questions, but as part of that kind of overarching best practice framework, having or expecting them, maybe it gets baked into the contract even, that there's a certain number of hours that are allocated to regular check-ins in a setting where it's not going to be as formal, where there maybe somebody is a little bit less reluctant maybe to share information or something like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Fully intend to build that into the contract. It's not in there now, so it really needs to be. Yeah.
Some of the innovation scope, like they name an expert who can advise Dash on things like mobility as a service and microtransit. Is that something that we requested, or did they proactively?
They proactively provided that. We asked them to outline programs that may be of interest to us in the consideration of this type of a contract. Value added propositions largely was what that fell under on the RFP. And so those are things that they brought forth.
Got it.
They actually mentioned in the proposal, they have a lot of experience with automated shuttle services too.
Okay.
They have a number of applications of that. Which we haven't really talked about, but I think going off track a little bit here, one of the conversations council was having was accessibility between the Mark Center Transit Center and the Del Pepper Community Center, which might be a prime opportunity for an automated shuttle because it's a short distance. So thinking about things like that, that would be a place where they could help us maybe understand what the implications are.
Any other questions? It's a very good discussion. So this will come back as a contract for the board to act on in June, and understand that we can push that to the fall, but would have to extend the current contract if there's.
So I will come to you with the proposed contract that's vetted by the committee and Lonnie and myself. And I will also have second to that an action item available to you to file an extension if you so choose to do that, so that then you have that flexibility if you have any concerns that aren't resolved at the end of June meeting. Yeah. Okay, oh yeah, you need to act on. Did they already act on? No. So I think we do need a approval.
Oh, to allow you to enter contract.
To allow us to enter contract negotiations.
Is there a motion to allow the general manager to enter into contract negotiations with TransDev?
So moved.
Moved by Rich. Is there a second?
Second.
Pretty, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Passes.
All right, thank you. The next item I have is the revised fiscal year 2025 budget. We concluded the city's budget process, including the add delete process. Staff have analyzed the total allocation for Dash and reviewed that on a line by line item basis. We did receive some additional insight into the costs of the actual line items for the FY 2025 budget. So we have adjusted some line items accordingly. There is no action required today. There will be a public hearing at the beginning of the June 2024 board meeting, and following that, we'll ask you to adopt the final budget. Some highlights of what changed. We were super happy that City Council restored the $180,000 to continue operation of line 104 at 30-minute headways. And so we've added those expenses back in. They're primarily operations. And so that's where those land. Liability insurance costs have reduced some in a final pricing, as well as fringe benefits have reduced a bit. We did move some positions around as far as where they sit on the budget. These are not new positions, it's just simply where they are in the budget under the facilities maintenance component. And we did adjust for some attrition. As you know, all of our employees move in scale, so we have a more accurate snapshot of who's working here today. And then we adjusted the travel account for increased use of commuter benefits costs. Ultimately, a few cost savings we identified, we were able to reallocate to professional development priorities, including training and employee recognition, which were the areas most hard hit over the past couple of years in our fiscal budget. The detail of that is in your packet of exactly where those landed, but they're relatively small amounts. The biggest changes are on the personnel side as it relates to that line 104. You can see here on the table, the first column is the final revised budgets and FY25 original, which was presented to you back in the fall. It's the second line. And then we note the change. You'll notice that the change there is largely $180,000 thanks to the addition of the line 104. So no other significant changes outside of that. We'll welcome any questions you might have on the individual line items, but again, you don't have to take action on this today. It's great news to have line 104 back, and we'll ask you to consider approving the budget at the next meeting.
Question on charters. I know we've had a little bit of conversation before. We had thought initially when we were applying for FDA funding that we wouldn't be able to do charters, and I believe the clarification was you just can't use assets that were acquired with FDA money to do
That's
that.
right.
So charters remain under 30,000. How are we doing this since we're offering charters this fiscal year? Are we in line with that? Is there potential to grow that through further awareness, since that is a business line that we can maintain? Are we limited in how we can advertise charters as being a recipient of federal funds?
So with that is a conservative number, 130 is probably low. The reality is any additional revenue that comes in from that will all further offset expenses and help to reduce the city's contribution amount in the coming year and in future years. Charters were expected to sunset, as you mentioned, because of FTA regulations around them, but we do believe that we'll be fine operating them with non-FTA funded assets for the foreseeable future. So we intend to continue that. Further, we've revised our charter rates. They were very outdated, and we've ensured that they are now market appropriate. They fully cover the expenses and generate some revenue as well to help offset other expenses that are not directly related to charters. So that line item amount, as far as where we are in the current year, I don't have a packet in front of me. Edward may be able to tell you where that lands exactly today compared to what we were budgeting, but we have seen an uptick. I will note that we paused charters in the fall. That was a part of our recognition that they were incurring more overtime than they were worth. So that was a part of our budget rebalancing process. Once we revised our rates, we were able to re-engage charters, I believe, after the first of the year. Did you want to mention anything?
Yeah, I can just say, through March, we had collected 50K in charters for FY24. We had projected nothing. We did not have a projection for this fiscal year. We do have some charters lined up for future months, so that number will come up. We're just not accounting for that yet. But that 50K, as Josh mentioned, we did have a pause on charters for some time, so we were revising, right?
Okay. Josh, what's the nature of our charters? Is it like, road race support, getting runners from one place to another? Is it, camps, or what is it general?
I think our biggest events for charters are what, Ray?
Our biggest routine charters are a couple of marathons, so like the Parkway Classic and the marathon. Typically like to focus on charters that are scalable to get more bang for the buck and put effort into. And the second, yeah, probably.
Weddings and stuff like that. Yeah,
And
a lot of
what-
wedding stuff.
What percentage of our assets are non-FTA funded though?
100% right now.
100%, oh, right now, because right.
But when we start getting additional electrics that have been paid for with FTA money, they're off limits.
So then we'll scale back to charter expectation or.
I don't think so. We haven't talked about doing that, at least in the short term. I don't think charters, that's not our primary business. And I've been very clear with our team that our priority is to run Dash service for the city. So that was one of the reasons we paused it. We were actually overextending ourselves some in charters, and to me, it's icing on the cake kind of revenue source. And it's great for us to have it, and we need to continue to bring it in, but it's not our priority. So we do some minimal advertising for it, but we don't dedicate a ton of staff resources to it. Trolleys are popular, but we don't pull a trolley when it needs to run regular service. So we can only provide assets that are not already being used for Dash service. A lot of weekend stuff, and the weekends we have a lot of our fleet idle. And so that's an opportunity for us to use it right now.
Other questions on the budget as proposed? All right, so we will have a hearing and then we'll vote in June.
That's right. Two quick final items, so that Edward doesn't have to stand up here and also provide a report. I want to let you know that we are continuing to face a balanced position at our year end. And we're very thankful for the team for continuing to work on that. And that continues to show itself there. We did notice a couple of unexpected expenses, although those are built into the year-end projection related to emergency repairs to the facility that are not covered by the city. Our overtime is in line with our budget projections. And we have had some increases in admin professional services due to vacancies and temporary staffing services, which we expect to continue, but Edward has been building those into his projections. I've asked him to make sure that, again, we don't have any surprises. I can't give Kendall any more heart palpitations. So we feel very solid in that year-end number, and it is a conservative estimate.
I'd be putting you on the spot, but if you know, when is the last time Dash ran a surplus?
I'm
not sure. So it's
probably pre-pandemic.
Okay.
It would have to have been pre-pandemic. Pandemic really messed things up, but of course
you were drawing other.
That was all right, and right, and then there was the rescue funds, as you might call them. And then we've had challenges in the past with fare revenues not meeting expectations and then volatile fuel prices. So
Well, I was trying to set you up for the fact that this is something to be celebrated, because we often have had to go for supplemental appropriation from council, and that we really, I think it shows, and I was talking to Kendall earlier today, and we were saying, oh, this is a really big deal for returning money.
I would love to see this be every year, and that's our commitment. And I will say that our next fiscal year budget, I've talked with Edward quite a bit about this, and we've really worked very hard. He's worked very hard with the team to make sure our numbers are right. On everything we can control, and to have some conservative budgeting in regards to fuel and other items to make sure that we don't have big surprises. I want to mention one other item before I turn it over to Martin. I'm very excited to announce that for the first time ever, Dash will have a special Pride Month bus that will be full wrap, partnership with Go Alex, and a DRPT marketing grant has helped us to afford to be able to do this. The bus will be revealed. I think we might have two. I told Camilla I'd like to do two if we can. She said, oh, okay, maybe we can. But it will have at least one bus. It will run in regular service, and we'll reveal that on social media May 31st, and on June 1st from 3 to 6 p.m. we'll be here at Market Square for the sorry, Camilla, I didn't write this in my notes. The group that's the Alexandria Pride Fair. I want to say Pride Fest, but it's Pride Fair. So please take an opportunity to come out. We'd love to have you stop by. And those buses, again, will run in regular service. I'm not going to show you the design because I don't want to spoil the surprise, but I can tell you it's incredible. I was really excited when I saw it. So really excited about this and proud of it. So, yes,
Will those buses just run on like different lines throughout the month?
they'll show up in random places on different routes.
Like a good word for heavy line 30. I will have a teenager who's very, always excited to ride the bus, but we'll be like thrilled to get to the right bus.
And we know from past experience with other types of wraps and special events that it generates a lot of social media interest online. And so we're hopeful that will engage the community and have folks talking about the day that, just like you see on Metro, you see Metro Rail, they do a lot more than this. They have a bigger budget than us, but things like cherry blossom trains and all those kinds of things. So we're excited about that and thankful that we have the funds to be able to do that this year.
Sorry, did you say we're gonna have one or definitely two? We're not sure on the two yet.
I definitely one, hoping for two,
Okay.
just so that there's more opportunity for people to ride.
Yeah, I refer you to the classic Jodie Foster film Contacts. The line, why build one when you can build two at twice the
One of
price?
my favorite movies.
And it's, is there just the wrap bus are gonna run in June, or are they?
I don't think we'll pull them off at the end of June, as incredible as they are. But we would certainly, we would certainly probably want to take them off later in the year. And because if we do something again next year, of course, is World Pride hosted in DC. And my hope is that Dash will actually be able to have a vehicle in that parade, which we're not typically involved in the DC parade. But I think if the whole world is coming, let's send the Dash bus over there too, right? So we'll be asking for volunteers to come for that too. Anyway, so just end on a high note there of some exciting stuff coming up. So then I will turn it over to Martin to talk about free fares.
Join you guys at the table.
Right.
Come on up. Thank you. Josh, you got the slide there?
Yeah.
All right, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So the item for planning tonight is just an informational item. No board action is requested or required. This is our staff presentation of the annual free fares program report. Program report is required through our fare free framework that was adopted by this board back in September 2021 when we first went fare free. The purpose of the report is to it's kind of an annual check-in on the program, seeing how things are going, measuring the success of the program on a couple of metrics that you see listed there. Also identifying any issues or maybe adjustments that might need to be considered, and then to inform any decisions on the program going forward. So you can see there the metrics are ridership, customer feedback, employee feedback, and budgetary impact. So I'll be going through each of those tonight. And then the full report is available in the packet and then also at dashbus.com/free. So real quickly, ridership, I won't belabor the point, but we're doing very well in ridership. We've seen unprecedented growth in the last 2 years, the first 2 years of free fares and the new network. We've seen major increases in off-peaks during middays, evenings, and weekends. Have seen some overcrowding, especially during ACHS arrival and dismissal times. So we are monitoring that, determining what we can do to address that. Next slide, Josh. Couple ridership graphs, just quickly. These are the annual boardings for the last, 6-7 years. So as you can see, we had the 4.5 million in FY23. For FY24, we still have 2 months left. I can say with certainty that we're going to set a new record. And I can say with pretty good certainty we're going to break 5 million. I think we're going to be between 5.1 and 5.2 if current trends hold. So hopefully some more celebrations in the near future. We average weekday, Saturday, Sunday boardings are shown here for the last 3 years. You can see the dotted line is when we went fare free in 2021. So, we're now up around consistently 16,000 to 17,000 boardings on a typical weekday, 8,000 to 10,000 on Saturdays and Sundays. So great numbers there. And the last ridership slide is just showing ridership by hour again. So the blue is 2018 ridership by hour, the orange is 2023. So you're comparing not just pandemic era, you're comparing pre-COVID numbers versus current numbers. So you can see that we are still seeing major increases from where we were before the pandemic on an hourly basis. The bottom graph shows the percentage difference between 2018 and 2013. So the bigger bars represent a bigger increase. And those are, you see the biggest bars between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. So middays, and then evenings, especially 8, 9, 10, 11 p.m. So great news there.
Martin, would you like your ridership question? Sure. Now, before you move to the next section? That's fine. Do we have a sense of how much of the ridership increase like, is the data harmonized with Metro to understand, has there been a decrease in boardings of Metro buses in the city? And how much of it is net new transit ridership? Or like if we're just, I'm trying to figure out, like, are we just stealing passengers from Metro because it's free? The pay bus and the free bus and people take the free bus, or is there net new ridership?
It's a great question. You know, I think you have to look at that on like quarter by quarter basis, like the quarters that we share their riders. I think we did look at that, I think at one point last year, specifically the Duke Street corridor, looking at like line 30 versus the 28A. And what we saw is that even though the 30 ridership was up, the 28A ridership was up as well.
Okay.
So there wasn't necessarily a shift over to Metro or to the Dash. That said, I think it's fair to say that there are people that are specifically seeking out Dash buses when they have the choice. I think that we've seen that, you know, Alexandria as an example, other places. You know, I think we're seeing ridership on 102, which is a cross town route. You know, they could take the 28A, which is more frequent, you know, runs more often, but they're, you know, riding the 102 maybe because it's free. So things like that we're looking at. Kind of the larger question I think maybe you were kind of getting at too is that, you know, we don't have direct comparisons to the peer agencies in here. I can tell you that Metro bus ridership is up, but not as, you know, far up as we are. I think they're still struggling to get back to the pre-COVID. Yeah. Sure. So the second metric is customer feedback. We look at a couple things with this, customer complaints, but then also our customer survey that we did back in the fall. We did have a lot of demographic information that we collected through that survey, which showed that Dash riders on the whole are much more likely to be low income, much more likely to identify with community of color. I think the stat was, you know, they're about 1.5 times more likely than the average Alexandria resident to be from a community of color. They're also 3 times more likely than the average resident to be low income. So we are serving a lot of low income residents with our service, which is one of the fundamental goals of the program. In terms of the increases, we've seen that there's a combination of new riders that have started riding Dash in the last 2 years, but also existing riders using it more because of free fares. And we've seen that free fares, when you kind of give them all the different factors that might be influencing their decision to ride, free fares rose to the top as the most commonly cited factor. Next slide, Josh. And you've seen this slide before, but worth showing again. This is from our survey. You know, are you a Dash rider from before free fares, or did you start riding the last 2 years? If you started riding the last 2 years, was free fares affecting your decision? We found that, you know, over half are new riders since free fares, and 62% of those new riders, free fares was a factor in their decision. And then our existing riders are riding more. 53% of existing riders said that they are riding Dash more since free fares. So really good to see that. Like I mentioned, free fares was the most commonly cited factor when we asked, you know, the top 3 factors in, you know, your decision to ride Dash more. So others near the top were routes, reliability, and frequency. Passenger complaints. This is something that we monitor each month. This is the last 3 years, basically going back right before free fares. You can see we had a big spike, obviously, with the new network when we redesigned all the routes, but it's kind of been relatively flat for the most part, you know, which this doesn't factor in ridership. I mean, we're seeing huge ridership growth, but we're not seeing a commensurate increase in complaints. So that's a good indication that we're doing fairly well in that department. Operator feedback. So this is based on an operator survey that we have done a couple times in the last 3 years, once before free fares and a couple times since free fares to kind of gauge the differences. We have seen generally operator perspectives on safety, security, and customer interactions are largely positive, but we have in this latest iteration of the survey seen some decreases on those that we're taking a look into. The survey was done in March, so we're still kind of evaluating the results. And then we have also seen some increases in passenger incidents. Actually, Josh, you can keep going here. So this is the survey responses. We asked them a series of questions and asked them to strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree. One of the questions is, I feel safe on my bus. And you know, we saw 84% back in 2021, 67% now. So there's been a lot of staff turnover. That's 3 years, a lot of changes, but that is something that we're kind of aware of and working to identify, kind of digging more into the root cause. You know, at our SMT, our senior leadership meetings in the last couple of days here, and one of the items we're talking about is kind of engaging more with the operators, get to the bottom of some of these questions. Sorry, Josh, one more there. Most interactions are positive. That's talking about customer interactions. That also went down by a little bit.
Sorry, how do you define incidents? I think I might have asked this before and I just forgot the answer.
So those incidents right there are specifically incidents with passengers that are either perhaps unruly or intoxicated or just being disruptive. And maybe, I don't know if either of you guys have any more insights into the disruptive passenger incidents that we track each month. Put you on the spot, sorry.
Yeah, like you said, intoxicated passengers, unruly passengers, passenger on passenger interactions.
And how do the drivers respond to that when something like that's happening?
So that's a great question. I think that's been a focal point of our training program. Brent, do you want to talk a little about the de-escalation stuff?
Yeah, so obviously there are a number of ways they could respond. They might call the central first supervisor, all these kinds of things. But in response to this, we've changed and updated our de-escalation training, which every operator goes through at least once a year. They can request it, or more typically they're assigned it once a year. Everybody's got to go through a refresher program. That's what it's encapsulated.
Okay, thanks.
The FDA really wants to train them on this very specific topic, so it's something that across agencies, we're trying to come up with different ways to help our operators.
Thanks.
I have a question about this slide. So how many operators, what was the response rate for this compared to 2021 and 2024?
So that's a great question. We had about 50 of our 200 operators responded to this year's survey, which was lower than what we've had in the past. The past we've had as high as like 80 to 90. So the response rate was a little bit lower. So I think that could have also played a role as well.
And did you break it down by like how many years of service they have
We don't
in
have
that
that.
survey? Maybe, do you do this every year?
We have done it pretty much every year for the last few years. Yes.
So I would hope next year will include like a breakdown of years of service.
Okay.
And then I don't know how, like the actual period that you give operators to respond to the survey. Like maybe it's something at like a lunch break or what do you have, the annual party, right? Or something, what time of the year you guys are doing the survey, like factor that in to get the better response rate, because 50 out of 200 is pretty low. And it saddens me that people don't feel safe for the 50 people that responded and they're having negative interactions with passengers. I have good interactions when I'm on the dash bus, but yeah, that's concerning to me. And I would like to see a better understanding of the staff, their feelings out when they're out in the community.
Martin, is the survey anonymous on the driver?
So they're not required to provide their name. We do have incentives. We provide gift card drawings, if they're like a bunch of $50 gift cards. So in order to be eligible for the gift card, they have to provide their name, but if they don't have to provide their name.
We can certainly collect that additional information. Yeah.
Yeah, use this for something anonymous, right?
That's true. That would be
Yeah,
one to three.
I didn't realize this was an annual survey. I think it would be great to just see the data year over year, let's say over a 5-year period, to just track what the trend is like, and the number of responses. I think it's a great question that Adrisha asked that. What is that number of responses for each year?
Thank you.
So just trying to understand this a bit more. So our bus operators, they don't all have a dash email address, correct?
Right.
So is this being done via text message or? Okay.
We use a text blasting service, which we can't control if they hit stop.
Yeah.
We sign them up for it, and then if they don't feel like it, they hit stop and they stop getting the messages from us. And they provide their personal email addresses through our payroll system. But we have to be really careful about when and how we use that, because people get a little angry with us for using their personal email for work purposes. And we've not ever been able to find a solution, since right now we fall under the city's umbrella for IT. And so adding another 300 people, the city's IT has a cost implication, and they don't really use it. They don't have a computer. They have general access computers in the lounge, which is something we fought to add, but even that is limited in scope and use for security policies. So it's definitely been a challenge for as long as I've been at Dash and at other systems, getting engagement with drivers
and being able to communicate with them. But I think hopefully the text messaging service has been largely successful and can be used in that regard. And just finding ways to incentivize them. I will comment on this, that part of what Martin alluded to is this is folded under a more broad, fare free study, right? This is in response to the board's framework that was established when we went fare free. Separately, we're talking right now about new and innovative ways to, one, engage the workforce in meaningful ways, and two, to get their feedback. So your comments are very important to me, and I'm very connected with them because I share the concern. Those things fall a little bit outside of Martin's purview. They're more mine and other departments as well. But I do want to say that from a general workforce, we want to understand morale. We want to understand what's working for you, what's not, and those kinds of things. And Martin was able to provide us some insight in this past year that frankly was a little disappointing, and that is that morale is down a little bit across the board in respondents. Now, less respondents typically are the ones that are the most wound up about something. But I have acknowledged with the team separately and had extensive conversation, and that's part of this next initiative. We've done a lot of things this year that have changed things that feel bad. We've had to clamp down on overtime. We've redone our attendance policy, which is much more punitive. We have basically eliminated all incentive programs. We stopped all of travel, all of training, right? So all of those things came together in 1 year and are kind of feeling bad. The good news is, I think a combination of getting a new fiscal year where we're more balanced and we can restore those things, one. Two, we can implement a program that helps to further re-engage the workforce and talk about what we're doing and hear from them. And three, to get their feedback are going to be priorities in the coming year. And something that I want to see us tackle, because this is really, I think, was really focused on whether free fares have changed your working environment on the bus. But I think I want to know more beyond that as well. So I would just mention to you all that your comments are very timely and very in line with many of the reactions that I've had and my team have been talking about as well.
So in comparison to other systems in the region, like, do they do annual surveys like this? What are operators saying? Like, how do we compare?
If they do, they haven't really been sharing with us. I think that's going to be another part of this, is going to be figuring out how do we compare apples to apples. It's hard to know what they're asking them. Also, they're all operated in different ways, and in some cases, private operators, and there may be some things going on there that they don't like, So, but I think we can certainly engage in that conversation and try to get a sense. I look at turnover, which is really low at Dash. It's lower than anyone. So I think on a high level, I think we're retaining people, so that's a good thing. I think that some of what you're seeing here could be related to fare free. It could be a little bit related to the growth in our workforce. It could be related to the size, the number of people that we're transporting. And also just, in fact, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be presenting at the Virginia Transit Association about the rise of instability in transit. It's a national problem, and we see it locally. So this also corresponds with an industry trend over the past year to 2 years, where the issues just generally out there have been really tense, and ranging from youth violence and youth interactions on our buses has also been a big factor, I think, for our drivers, just having casual conversations, students carrying issues onto the bus from school and those kinds of things. So there's a lot of different things here. But I think that to your point, expanding the scope of trying to get in a little more detail and understand the details about the individuals and their responses and what they mean is going to be a priority for us. And I think it needs to happen outside of the Fare Free study. I think that this annual report to you all is really intended to broadly look at Fare Free, whereas sharing the concern to make sure our workforce is supported and feels comfortable in their jobs and feels safe is a very different question that I think we can break out and actually get also some more detail on that. So I would commit to you all to doing that.
Thank you.
Josh, you and I had talked some about that particular survey questions, those two questions as well. And I'm actually, as I'm looking at the charts, I'm actually wondering in terms of the timing of when the 2021 survey was administered. We don't certainly want to say that, you know, any challenges we have on buses are because of, we have lots of young people riding, but we know that there are challenges that come with that. But I wonder if ACPS was still remote at the time in 2021 when you did that survey. Now, because that would have a big impact on the loads that we were, you know, is this like spring of 2021 when we surveyed? Or?
It would have been probably September of 2020, right before August.
Okay.
Right before, sorry, August.
So you know, that certainly has changed the, you know, our ridership, but both in terms of numbers having gone way up because we're moving people to and from schools, but I wonder if that could have something to do with this as well. But appreciate the conversation insight from my colleagues.
Couple more slides. We've talked about passenger incidents a little bit. We are seeing, when you standardize it against ridership, an uptick in passenger incidents like we talked about. Next slide, Josh. Last metric is budgetary impact. So we just kind of identified that, you know, we did benefit from DRPT grant funding, $7.2 million over the 4-year period of the grant. That does run through the end of end of calendar year 2025. Additional cost savings from these other factors, including the Smart Trip program fees that we're no longer going to be paying, and other factors. And then obviously the big financial incentive of not returning the fare collection because we would have to return the grant, and then we'd also have to incur the cost of purchasing 100+ new fare boxes that have a $6 to $7 million price tag. So, yeah, next slide, Josh. I think overall we can agree that the free fares have achieved the goal of increasing ridership and benefiting low-income riders. I've seen this historic ridership growth, positive customer feedback on the whole, and generally positive feedback from operators, that we do have some areas that we need to delve into further. So that's both of the report. Happy to take any further questions or discussion.
On the last slide, in terms of the revenue that was previously pre-pandemic, it said like 3 to 4 million based on elevated. Was it like in a typical year, 3 to 4 million, or did it vary significantly from year to year?
I think 4 million was probably the high watermark that we saw, and that was back when we were in 2015, 2014, somewhere in that area, which was what we had our previous high ridership.
I just wanted to comment, like, it's incredible how well this has gone in terms of the popularity, and I think this budget cycle that just concluded was really important for sort of like education about, you know, the interaction with the grant. And I think one indicator of that was like a few of us last week were at one of these candidate forums, and all 8 of the attendees of the candidates for council, this is like a yes/no question when asked if they support fare free dash, and they disagreed all over the place about all kinds of things, but it was unanimous. 8 out of 8 of the council candidates, 1 out of 1 of the mayoral candidates who attended, all said, yeah, thumbs up, they support fare free dash. So
I think that might have been the only unanimous question based on the reporting I saw. Pretty
so
awesome.
it's uniting the city.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, well, we have come to the end of our public agenda. I do have one more item just to announce. I neglected the chair's report, and then I'll announce the meeting as well. Josh brought to my attention that our general counsel, Lonnie Rich, who has, I think since 2017, 2018, when we were no longer using the city attorney's office, had to retain our own general counsel for the ATC, is going to be retiring from practice of law, not on a sort of like a date certain, but kind of starting to wind down his partnership. And so that will require us to transition to a new general counsel. I know Beth is working on getting a meeting with me and Lonnie to talk about resources within his firm that we have a retainer with his firm, and certainly our records are all there. And if we are able to then transition to another partner within the firm who can give us the kind of support that we need that we got from Lonnie, then be great. We also would have the option of doing an RFP and seeking other counsel as well. I think Lonnie's given us plenty of notice, so it's not like we're going to go for the summer. He's not going to be here in the fall, but I'm hoping in June I'll have a little more to report on that. I've indicated I want to make sure that just Josh and his team, I think, rely on Lonnie more than the board does, and I want to make sure they are comfortable as well. And so, with any proposed transition, so will be more to come on that. But I just wanted to flag that. I think Matt was also aware that Lonnie had whispered in my ear a few months ago that Lonnie also had mentioned that he would be wrapping up. He's been a wonderful general counsel, and so hopefully we'll be able to, maybe he won't bill us, but we'll have him over to celebrate when he does retire officially, because it's been a really good arrangement for us. So just wanted to note that. So we do have an executive session. I guess I'll announce the meeting. Next meeting is June 12th on the slide. And because we'll have the budget public hearing, then we'll be back here at City Hall for that meeting. There is an executive session on the agenda, and so the motion, the language is on the screen. If anyone would like to make a motion for that.
I, Kirsten Phelps, the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors, convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters pursuant to section 2-3711, 8.1 of the Code of Virginia.
Moved by Kristen, second Art, all in favor? Aye. Okay, all right, we will convene an executive session and then we'll come back to close the meeting.
Yep, if you'll give us just a couple minutes to collect the nameplates and stuff like that. Or do you? We can stick around. Okay, we'll stick around. That's fine.
Brent, what did you decide? You want the bond? I like the bond. We are back on the record. There are two motions, well, then we'll adjourn, that we'll need to make. So they're on the screen. Whoever would like to volunteer?
Does Kirsten have to exit us?
No.
I, Arish Gudger, move to reconvene the public meeting of the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors.
All right, has been moved. Is there a second? Second, Matt, all in favor? Aye.
I, Arish Gudger, move to certify that pursuant to section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters that were identified in the motion by which the executive session was convened and that are lawfully exempted from the Freedom of Information Act from the Act's open meeting requirements were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during the executive session.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Second. All right, all in favor? I've already announced.
You want to have that here?
Yeah, we'll do it here.
That's
So we're
fine.
gonna have the hearing.
I just had put it because we were flip flopping usually, but that's fine.
Yeah.
We've got this one reserved already, right?
Yeah.
Josh, when in doubt, have it here.
So your counterpart Hillary is fighting us to have him over at the Dashes, which I didn't understand because I thought she lives on the east side.
One flight of stairs for me.
I like what is it? 4 minute.
Thank you.
For me.
All right, well,
Listen.
we'll be back up. Again, only because we postponed, we were here because we thought we were gonna have a public hearing. We'll have it. So we need to make a motion to adjourn. So Matt, second.
Second.
By a lot of people, all there. Give it to a Jason.
Also, I forgot to remind everyone earlier, next Friday is Bike to Work Day.